So this is something that's been in the works for a while. Super excited to finally share it. We bought a grip van. We bought a small van that we're gonna convert into sort of a production van for grip gear, camera gear, all sorts of different stuff. And we are going to take you guys along the journey. This is part one. Right now we're headed to the office, and I'll meet y'all there to tell you a little more about sort of the plans and everything else. So I'll see you in a little bit. GoPro, stop recording. Oh yeah. We bought a grip van for our video production needs and also to possibly rent out for our rental side of the business for other productions in town that need a grip van. Throughout this video, I'm basically going to be talking about sort of my thought process with why I felt we needed a grip van, and also some of the plans for it and some of the updates and changes that are going to be made to it. So regardless, it'll be a multi-part series breaking down the internals of the van and sort of rebuilding it into something that really fits with a sort of grip video production workflow, and also going through some of the exterior updates and cosmetic changes and everything else like that. So with this first part of the video, we're just basically going to walk through. I'm going to talk about sort of some of the issues with it and some of the things that we're going to change and just some of my initial visions for it. Throughout the series, the visions might change a little bit. Some of the things that I'm saying now might change later on. Without further ado, let's get into this first part of our grip van build. All right, so first and foremost, the van is a 2015 Ram ProMaster Tradesman City. It's kind of a mouthful. I have been looking for a van passively for about a year now, and I've been kind of waiting for the right van to come our way. So I found the van on Facebook Marketplace. Some guy was selling it. He had a cleaning business or something and had a bunch of those little cargo vans for the cleaning people that would go around. And so I took it for a couple of test drives, took it to the mechanic, got green lights on everything. And at that point I was like, all right, I'm doing this. So we figured out a price and everything else, and I got it. With grip vans, there's kind of different sizes that you can choose from. A very common one is a Ford Transit, and those have different roof heights. So they have the low, the medium, and the high, and then they also have different wheelbases. So for our needs, with the types of productions that we're doing, the amount of gear that we have, we really don't need something that big. It would be nice to have something larger, but at the same time, there's also cons to think about. It's a lot larger vehicle to store, and it can't fit in a lot of garages and parking garages and stuff like that if you have kind of like a higher roof setup. The nice things about a van that's this size, the one that we have, is that it's essentially the size of a normal vehicle, a small SUV, and so it can really fit anywhere. You can park it in any spot, you can parallel park it, you can easily fit it in any type of parking garage. And although that's not like a major concern where we are in Central Oregon, it still is a little bit of a concern. And depending on where we're at, it's nice to be able to really fit into any spot with the van. And also, having said that, Portland is relatively close and we often do shoots over there. And so being able to take the van over there and go into any type of parking garage in Portland. Downtown parking is a disaster there, so having a small van is really nice being over there. So that's kind of one of the reasons that we went for the small setup. Also for me, it's kind of a fun challenge to be able to figure out how we're gonna most efficiently fit all of the gear inside a relatively small cargo area compared to like a larger Ford Transit or like a Mercedes Sprinter or something. Before I bought it, I definitely kind of drew out some plans and thought about, how is stuff gonna fit. There's also some great resources online for other grip vans and stuff like that, and kind of seeing other people's builds helped give me ideas and figure out how stuff was gonna fit, and then see how C-stands would fit and combo stands and different types of lights. And so after I did all of that, I kind of realized that van would work for us. So for a 2015 van, this was in relatively good condition. It was super low mileage, which is kind of what sold me on it. It has like 31,000 miles on it, which is just crazy for a 2015. And that was something that was kind of difficult to find, was something that was relatively decently priced that was also low mileage. I want to have it for a long time. I want to be able to use it for a long time. And so having a reliable van was very important for me. Having said that, there are some issues on it. So obviously we have this mirror right here, which is completely broken and cracked. I don't know what happened to it. So sort of the first phase of this is getting all of the repairs done that need to be done, and basically getting everything cleaned up and getting it kind of just really dialed in before I go into the interior build and stuff. And then that second part is going to be the interior build, which is kind of going to be the most important part. So that's going to be building out the back of the cargo van, building shelves, and installing E-Track and L-Track, and figuring out how everything is going to fit in there. So that's kind of the most important part. And then that third part is basically going to be going through some of the cosmetic stuff, the outside stuff, possibly getting new tires. It is front wheel drive, and living in Bend, we do get snow. So we'll kind of see how that does. We might need to get maybe some snow tires or something like that for it. And then maybe, I don't know, I've thought about maybe getting a wrap. I do kind of like the stealth look of not having anything there, especially when we're having a lot of expensive equipment in there. But at the same time, having some type of like subtle branding, I think would be pretty cool. So with the mirror, it's going to be a pretty easy fix. I think it's just going to be a matter of finding this mirror on eBay or something, and then either I install it or take it to a mechanic and have them do it. The other mirror you can see is fine. That's how it's supposed to look, essentially. Logo of ProMaster City, and the reason for city, I'm assuming, is because it is kind of meant for the city. It can fit in, like I was talking about, fit in all kinds of different parking places and stuff like that. So these are halogen bulb lights. We'll see if we want to get these replaced. They're definitely not super bright, but that would kind of fit into the last stage of doing some of the cosmetic updates and all that other stuff. When I took it to the mechanic, they said that there's about 60% tread left on the tires, which is pretty decent. When I bought the van, it actually snowed like the day that I bought it. And so I was driving it a little bit in the snow, and it actually handled pretty nice. So I think the tires are going to be a stage 3 update as well. Definitely not something that's needed right now. Obviously the wheels don't look great, but that's also a cosmetic update. So I really want to get everything else dialed in that's going to be more functional, and then later on we can figure out about how to make it look more badass, basically. That would be the dream right there. If we could get some KO2s on the grip van, I think that would make it a little more mean. KO2s are great in the snow as well, so that could definitely be an option. Also, I forgot to mention, but the van is named Vinny. So if I start calling it Vinny, that is the van that I'm talking about. My girlfriend actually came up with it, so it's short for mini van, or van mini, Vinny. And then also we're talking about here maybe doing a lift on it. It is pretty damn low to the ground. And so again, this would be a stage 3 thing. Having more clearance may be important as the winter comes around. Also, we do a decent amount of stuff kind of like in the forest and off-road. And so we'll kind of see how it does in those types of conditions, but possibly another thing down the road would be lifting it a few inches along with better tires, just to generally get more ground clearance and everything else. So another update for the first stage is these little things right here. So essentially this piece that connects the door to the van is missing. Basically, it's a little like rubber or metal piece that locks the doors at 90 degrees when you're opening them. So right now with this piece missing, when you open the van doors and you kind of like swing them open, they just basically swing all the way to 180 degrees, and they don't stop at 90. So we don't want the doors like swinging open and dinging other cars. So this is just a little fix that I think I can order the parts from eBay and then either have a mechanic install them, or depending on how easy it is, I can possibly install them. You can see right there, that's what it's supposed to look like. This is how it'll look when the doors are fully open, when they're not locked at 90 degrees. So you can see you have a ton of area there to be able to load and unload gear. And I should mention we're coming from using my 4Runner, which is right here, for all of our productions. And so obviously there's a hatchback there that opens up. And so being able to have a fully open rear cargo area without anything up here is going to be super nice. And it's also just a lot higher clearance area in there. So I don't know what the clearance area is of the 4Runner, but I know it's not what this is. You definitely can't stand up straight in the cargo van, but you can easily go in there and kind of crouch in there. I've been doing it a lot as I've been kind of putting things together. So looks a little crammed, but Okay, so now we're going in the front of the van. One thing that's super nice that I would have had to add if it was not here is this built-in partition that separates the passenger area from the cargo area. It's essentially a safety piece. So, you know, if the brakes are slammed, no gear is gonna come flying into the passenger compartment. It's a great piece that was already in there and something that I would have had to add anyways. There's a ton of headroom in the passenger area, which is super nice. It kind of feels like you're driving like a U-Haul van or something with like a lot of space. And then there's also this area up here, which is super nice. There's like a mesh bungee that kind of separates it. So up there, I think part of the kit, we're gonna have just like some general miscellaneous stuff, like a first aid kit and a tool kit, jumper cables, stuff like that. So I think all of that stuff is basically gonna live up there. So this is another kind of phase 1 update here. So this radio is not great. Some of the buttons are kind of broken on it, like that wheel doesn't really turn. So this is gonna get upgraded to like a touch screen, like a JVC unit or something. The bigger reason why this is gonna get updated is because we're gonna be installing a backup camera in the back of the van. It doesn't have one right now. And part of the build is basically going to be putting shelves behind the partition so that there's no view. So having a backup camera is going to be super, super important. And with that, you're going to have a screen. So it's kind of like a 2-in-1 thing. So that's going to go right there. I'm also thinking about maybe doing a backup cam in the rear view mirror, but I think it's just going to make more sense to have one down here. And then it can just always be running. So it can kind of just be like a constant backup cam digital rear view basically. But yeah, seats are comfortable. It's a comfortable space. The vehicle actually drives really nice. It has some nice kick to it, and it's really comfortable to drive, surprisingly too. This is a funny thing right here. So I've never seen this before. It's kind of like a 2-in-1 lock and like vertical door handle. So you kind of like pull up to open the door and then you like push it down to lock it, I think. I don't know. It's just something I've never seen before. So it's kind of interesting. Also, the auto windows are super nice. Not something that I was really expecting. It's kind of like a more bells and whistles thing, and this van definitely did not have bells and whistles. So having auto windows on both of the windows is kind of just like a little thing that's just nice to have. All right, so now we're gonna move to the back. We're gonna move to the back cargo area, the most important part of it. So the really nice thing about this van compared to a lot of other like Transits and other stuff like that is that it has sliding doors on both sides, which most cargo vans only have a sliding door on one side. Having these sliding doors on both sides is really gonna help for sort of my vision for this area. Being able to have different compartments that can be accessed from both sides, I think is gonna be really huge. So while we're here, I'll kind of draw out a little bit of the initial vision for this area of it. So we're gonna have our flag area right here. This is basically just going to be made out of plywood, and it's going to be connected to the partition right there. We're going to be able to store either 4x flags and diffusion and everything else, or 40-inch depending on how it fits. But we'll be able to store a bunch of those flags there and just be able to quickly slide them out. And then to the left of that, it's going to be another sort of plywood type setup for C-stands. So I measured it, and C-stands fit in just by sliding perfectly in there. So I think I'm gonna have like a 2-tiered plywood shelf where we're gonna have like 4 to 5 C-stands on the bottom, and then we're gonna be able to have another 4 to 5 C-stands on that top shelf. And that'll be accessible on this side, so everything will be able to be pulled out from the passenger side. And then there should be space up on the top here where we'll either store like apple boxes or rags or whatever we can kind of fit up there, but there's going to be a decent amount of space up there. So that's like the initial vision of that part. We'll see how accurate that turns out when it's built. For the flag portion, this is going to be closed off right here, so we're not actually going to be able to access the flags from this side. What I think I am going to do is build some type of little shelf on this backside of this wood box for maybe different types of like expendables, have a couple shelves for gaff tape and paper tape and cine foil and some other stuff like that can just be accessible from this area. For a van that's this small, it's super important to make the most of the space and be really sort of efficient and kind of have like multi-use things in different areas. And so I think this is kind of a cool way to maybe incorporate different uses into one thing. And here's a better look at the partition right here. So it's bolted in on all sides. Yeah, if stuff goes flying, that's gonna protect us essentially. Hopefully stuff doesn't go flying because I'm gonna have stuff pretty lock down here. All right, so now we're gonna open up the back. Another nice thing is that these doors are not the same size. So one door is larger than the other. I think there's a couple benefits to that. One is that if we're in like a really tight spot, we can kind of just open that short door there. The larger door can maybe be used to store, I'm thinking possibly we can have combo stands on there, and then maybe something else on the smaller door. So here we can see this shelf that also came with the van. When I was first looking at the van and like first bought it, I was really thinking about just getting rid of this shelf. It just didn't seem very practical, and I was kind of thinking that we would maybe like build something else. But over time, I've kind of like thought about the plans and measured some stuff and everything else, and I think it'll actually work out really nicely. The plan is to move this top shelf down a little bit, move this middle shelf down a little bit, and then just get rid of this shelf right here. And then with that, we'll basically be able to have half milk crates up here, full milk crates here, probably keep like sandbags, shot bags, other stuff down here. You know, if there's any way that I don't have to rebuild a shelf or get rid of this shelf, I think I'd like to do it, and we'll see how it works out in the next part, and if we can actually make it work and everything else. That's kind of the initial plan with that shelf. This is kind of looking at the other side of it here, how it's going to be set up. So we're going to have the flags and the C stands here. That's going to go probably like about to there basically. And then the rest of this area is going to be pretty open. So how I'm envisioning it is we're going to be able to keep Pelican cases and other large cases over here on the left side. And then the right side is going to be for carts. So I think we're going to be able to fit either a Magliner Junior or possibly a Magliner Senior here. And that'll just basically live right there with either L-Track or E-Track. We'll see what works best for the setup. And then what I'm thinking here, I haven't fully decided what's going to go on this wall, but for the time being, I'm thinking I'm going to build some type of like plywood wall that goes in there. And then we're going to have some type of like E-Track mount that we can mount another cart. We have like it's like a K12 or an R12 like stealth cart or something, so it's relatively lightweight. So I think, and it can also be folded up, so I think that we can maybe mount that on this wall, just kind of like off the floor, away from everything else. I don't know what else we're gonna put right there. I think that's kind of just like space that we'll see how everything else fits in all the other areas, and then if there's stuff that still needs to fit in there, then that's kind of something that I'm saving to sort of fit other stuff there. All right, so that's kind of an initial walk around of the van and talking a little bit about my initial plans and ideas of how this is going to turn into sort of a small but mighty grip package that we can fit into this little cargo van. I hope you guys like this video. Like I said, there's going to be more parts of this coming out in the future, talking about the different stages and actually like showing a lot of the behind the scenes of building it and everything else. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be a resource that's really going to help us grow as a production company and you know, take on larger projects and be able to have larger amounts of gear and be able to handle sort of larger sets and larger setups and everything else. So super excited about this. Super excited to bring it to our city and kind of have it as a resource for other people as well. It's something that's been needed for a while, and excited to finally have it here. All right, guys, so that wraps it for part 1 of the grip van build. I hope you found it helpful and informative. If you guys are thinking about building a grip van, buying a grip van, getting some type of vehicle for your own production, let me know, and maybe I can bounce some ideas around and share some ideas with all of y'all. Follow along for the other parts. We should have part 2 coming out very shortly. With all of that said, make sure to drop a like, drop a sub. Until next time,